A cold drizzle fell as Jack drove home from work that evening. The single father had just picked up groceries and was thinking about what to cook for his 10-year-old daughter, Emily. Life had never been the same since his wife, Claire, passed away 3 years ago in a tragic car accident. Since then, Jack had done everything to fill both parental roles, learning to braid hair, attending every school play, and being there for bedtime stories and bad dreams. His love for Claire had never faded. Every night, after tucking Emily in, Jack would sit on the porch with a cup of tea and stare at the stars, remembering the laughter, the small jokes, the dreams they once shared. The wound hadn't healed, but he had found a way to live with it. His heart still belonged to her. That evening, as he approached a slippery curve on the highway, Jack spotted a car flipped over in a shallow ditch. The front hood was crumpled, smoke rising into the misty air. Without hesitation, Jack slammed on the brakes and pulled over. He didn't think, he just ran. Mud splashed onto his jeans as he slid down the embankment. Through the shattered windshield, he could see a woman slumped against the seatbelt, unconscious. Her face was bloodied, but something about her looked vaguely familiar. He tried the door, but it wouldn't budge. Sparks hissed from the broken engine, the smell of burning oil thick in the air. With a grunt, Jack used a rock to break the side window, reached in carefully, and unlatched the seatbelt. He dragged the woman out just before the car began to hiss louder, flames flickering under the hood. Cradling her in his arms, he carried her up the slope and laid her gently on the grass near his truck. She was breathing, but barely. He dialed 911 and stayed by her side until the ambulance arrived. It wasn't until the paramedics began treating her that Jack caught a clear glimpse of her face. Despite the bruises and blood, he saw her jawline, her nose, and the shape of her lips. A shock ran through him. Could it be Claire? He whispered. But no, that couldn't be. Claire was gone. Then it hit him. This woman looked just like her because she was Claire's sister, Julia. Jack hadn't seen Julia since Claire's funeral. The two sisters had been close growing up, but after a bitter family feud years ago, Julia had disappeared from their lives. No one had heard from her in over a decade. Rumors said she moved to Europe, started a business, and lived a private, extravagant life far away from everything she once knew. Jack never imagined seeing her again, let alone like this. The hospital stay was long. Julia had multiple fractures, a mild concussion, and bruised ribs. Jack visited every day, even when she was unconscious. Emily, shy at first, would draw pictures and ask questions about her mysterious aunt. Slowly, as Julia recovered, she started talking about her guilt, her regrets, and why she had left. I didn't even know Claire had passed until last year, she confessed tearfully. I tried to find the courage to come back, to make amends, but I was too late. Jack listened quietly. The pain in her voice was real. Julia had missed her sister's final days, the funeral, and the morning that followed. But she hadn't forgotten. When she learned about Claire's death, she began donating to charities in her name and set up a scholarship in her memory, all anonymously. But fate had brought her back in the most unexpected way. As Julia healed, she and Emily grew close. They read books together, laughed over silly cartoons, and talked about Claire. Julia was surprised by how much her niece reminded her of her sister. The same spark in the eyes, the same kindness. It broke her heart and healed it at the same time. Jack watched all this with a cautious heart. He was grateful she survived and was reconnecting with family, but he didn't know where things would go. Julia had a different life. She was wealthy, successful, and had lived in cities he couldn't even pronounce. He was just a small-town mechanic raising a daughter on love, values, and frozen pizza. But Julia surprised him. She didn't go back to Europe. Instead, she bought a small house nearby and started helping at the local community center. She kept a low profile, never flaunting her money or success. She said she wanted to feel real again. One evening, a few months after the accident, Julia invited Jack and Emily over for dinner. Her home was modest but warm, filled with plants and art. They laughed over Claire's old stories and played board games by candlelight. After Emily fell asleep on the couch, Julia and Jack stepped outside. "Jack," she said gently, "I owe you more than my life. You pulled me out of that wreck not knowing who I was. You saved me, not just physically, but in every way." He looked at her, unsure of what to say. She continued, "I've been running for so long, trying to bury the pain. But now I realize, family is everything. Claire would want us to heal, to rebuild." Jack nodded slowly. "She would. And I think Emily needs you. We both do." They stood in silence, the stars twinkling above them. It wasn't love, not yet. But it was something real. A bridge built from pain, memory, and a second chance. Months passed. Julia started reading to kids at Emily's school and volunteered at the animal shelter. Jack, inspired by her spirit, started fixing cars for single mothers at no charge. Emily was happier than ever, surrounded by love, by family, and by stories of a mother who lived in their hearts. Eventually, Jack and Julia opened a small foundation together in Claire's name, helping widowed parents and children who had lost loved ones. The impact was immediate, and the community rallied behind them. Julia never flaunted her wealth. She believed her real richness was in connection, forgiveness, and purpose. She had once been lost, but the accident, and Jack, gave her a new beginning. The day Julia officially adopted Emily as her legal guardian in case anything ever happened to Jack, the little girl hugged her tightly and whispered, "You're my favorite aunt in the whole world." Julia smiled through tears. "And you're my favorite reason for living." In the end, it wasn't about the past or the money. It was about second chances, redemption, and the beautiful messiness of life. A single dad, a lost sister, and a little girl created something whole from the broken pieces, proving that love can come from the most unexpected wreckage. And that sometimes, the people we save, are the ones sent to save us.